Noastră, ca american, privind toată această criză din Europa, văzând și spaimele noastre, ce reacție aveți?
Thank you, Sever, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me this opportunity to join this discussion on what is very evidently a very important topic to Europe, but also to the United States and the rest of the world. As you mentioned, Sever, the United States is a country that's founded on the principle of immigration. During our 240 years of history, there have been repeated, sometimes very large waves of immigrants that have come to the United States, and with some exceptions, the country has proven to be very resilient and flexible and able to absorb these waves of immigrants. And as you stated, they have very much contributed to, we believe, the strength of our democracy and the strength of our economy and our national power and influence in the world today. Currently, immigrants, that is, those people who were not born in the United States, make up 13% of America's population. Fairly significant number. 16%, so 1/6 of our workforce is made up of people who have immigrated to the United States. And they have immigrants we see are as contributing greatly, again, to the vitality of the United States, both economically and otherwise. When we look to Europe, we do so with what we hope is understanding and also sympathy, because even though the United States has been successful in accepting and integrating, again, over centuries, waves and waves of immigrants, nevertheless, it poses great challenge. The challenge of integration of these immigrants is still very much a question today. Politically, you could argue that the number one topic of debate in the presidential election this year in 2016 is immigration, and certainly one of the candidates, Donald Trump, very much pushed the topic and debate around immigration, and it greatly helped his candidacy. I think it's fair to argue that. As we look to Europe and saw the impact of the large emigration out of Syria primarily in 2014, but especially in 15 and even in this year, we recognize that this is a challenge that would be difficult for any set of countries to face, and indeed we believe it's a global challenge and not just a European challenge. Currently we estimate that there are 20 million refugees who have left their country for one reason or another and are seeking either relocation, resettlement, asylum in another country, or assistance until they wait till the conflicts that drove them out of the countries to abate and allow them to return. 20 million people. That's the size of Romania itself. Currently, right now. We need to separate immigration that's legal, that's a result of laws that have been established in the receiving countries, that is governed by regulation, that is understood and supported by the receiving country population. And then there is illegal migration or immigration, which generates either political misunderstanding or political concerns, or sometimes fear within populations. And I think that's what's particularly occurring here in Europe, but not only in Europe. It's illegal immigration that's generating the political uncertainties and concerns that have allowed certain candidates in the United States to generate a great deal of support in pointing to the failure of the current administration and past administrations to regulate illegal migrants coming into the United States. I think this is a great part of also what is driving the concerns in Europe, and may have also contributed to some important degree to the decision of the the English voters to decide to leave the European Union, because they saw it as a state failure, essentially, that's a failure of institutions to govern migration. And as Ambassador Cristea pointed out too, I think many countries, the United States and the European Union, have tried hard in countries far from Syria, for example, in Ethiopia, in Somalia, in Eritrea, which are all large source countries for the migration that's presently awash across the globe. And then in the case of the United States, we've worked very hard with Central American countries, and Mexico in particular, to try to control migration flows from the south of our borders. Coming back to your question, what is the United States and what is the European Union doing together to try to arrest and manage these flows? Well, one, there's this enormous diplomatic effort that includes the European Union, includes Russia and the United States, to try to bring peace to Syria in one very, very important case. There's also military efforts underway to try to stabilize that country. There's also an enormous humanitarian effort taking place that is largely led by the European Union and the United States to bring humanitarian relief to refugees out of Syria, both in Syria and in neighboring countries, Lebanon, Jordan, and Turkey, to try to keep them there until the Syrian conflict can be resolved, so that they can return to their homes without having to go further abroad, either to Europe or to other countries. President Obama has, in recognition of the seriousness of the global refugee crisis, not immigration crisis, but refugee crisis, has called for a leaders summit to take place next month in New York, which will be attended by, it's co-hosted by Sweden, a member of the European Union. It will be attended by many other members of the European Union, and will really seek to address how jointly we can try to bring additional humanitarian assistance, to try to identify how countries can increase their acceptance of refugees from these areas, and again, areas, not just Syria, but other areas from around the world. And then for those countries that have large numbers of refugees within their borders, how they can put into place policies to more quickly integrate those refugees within their societies through employment and education. So in the short term, I would say that global summit next month, and the effort within the United Nations and transatlantically, those are the most important efforts that we're doing jointly to address these problems.